The crystal spires of Serenus Prime burned against the dark sky. Ambassador Theiss pressed her three-fingered hand against the cold window of the council chamber and watched her world die. Orange flames danced across the beautiful towers that had taken centuries to grow. Her people had built them not with tools, but with songs that shaped the living crystal. Now the Crax bombs turned those same crystals into deadly shards. How many ships do they have now? Theiss asked without turning around. Council leader Veth checked the tactical display with trembling hands. 212 vessels in orbit, more arriving every hour. This closed her large dark eyes. The Villani had always been peaceful. Their three species, the crystal singers, the flower tenders, and the sky dancers, had lived in harmony for thousands of years. They grew their cities instead of building them. They healed the sick instead of making weapons. War was something they read about in old stories, not something that happened to real people. But the Crax Empire cared nothing for peace. The reptilian warriors had swept across 12 star systems in 6 months. They took what they wanted and killed what they could not use. Planets burned behind them. Billions died. The galaxy watched and did nothing. Send the message, Theiss said quietly. Veth's leaf-like ears drooped. Ambassador, we have already sent 17 requests for aid. The Ethereal Confederation says we are too far from their territory. The Magna Hegemony wants payment in weapons we do not have. The Crystal Lords claim they cannot spare any ships. Then we send it to everyone. Every species, every government, every ship captain who might listen. Theiss turned from the window. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear, but her voice stayed strong. Someone must help us. The council chamber fell silent except for the distant sound of explosions. Through the great windows they could see Crax dropships falling like deadly rain toward the lower city. Each ship carried 1,000 soldiers. Each soldier lived only to kill. Theiss walked to the communication console. Her fingers moved across the crystal controls, opening channels to every known frequency. The message would reach hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. Most would ignore it. Some would feel sorry but do nothing. A few might even help if the price was right. This is Ambassador Theiss of the Villani Republic, she began. Her voice carried across the stars, seeking hope in the darkness. We are under attack by the Crax Empire. Our cities burn. Our people die. We have no weapons to fight them. We have no soldiers to defend our homes. She paused as another explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow. We offer everything we have to anyone who will help us. Our technology, our knowledge, our friendship. We ask only that you come quickly. We will not last much longer. The message went out across the galaxy. On Ethereal Prime, the High Council debated for 3 days before deciding the Villani had nothing worth risking war with the Crax. On Magnus 7, warrior clans counted the cost and found it too high. The Crystal Lord sent sympathy but no ships. One by one, the responses came back. All said the same thing in different ways. Sorry, but no. Captain Do-hyun of the United Earthship Indomitable was eating breakfast when the message reached his ship. The human vessel patrolled the far edge of known space, looking for pirates and mapping new trade routes. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Do-hyun was a small man with kind eyes and steady hands. He had joined Earth's space fleet to see the galaxy and help people. So far, he had seen mostly empty space and helped mostly with broken cargo haulers. Captain, called Communications Officer Park from her station. I'm picking up a distress signal. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it through. Do-hyun listened to the Villani ambassador's plea. He had never heard of the Villani before, but the fear in her voice was real. The desperation was something he understood. Earth had faced its own dark times. Humanity knew what it meant to fight for survival. How far to their location? He asked. Park checked her charts. 18 days at maximum speed, sir. And how long do they have? Based on Crax attack patterns from our intelligence files, maybe 3 days. Do-hyun stared at the tactical display showing the distant Serenus system. 18 days was too long. Even if they left right now, they would arrive to find only dead worlds and empty space. But there was another option. Get me Admiral Bo-ra at Earth Command, Do-hyun ordered. Priority 1. The connection took several minutes to establish across the vast distance. When Admiral Bo-ra's face appeared on the screen, she looked tired. Command of Earth's growing fleet was not an easy job. Captain Do-hyun, what's your situation? We received a distress call from the Villani Republic. They're under attack by the Crax Empire. Complete extermination from the sound of it. Bora's expression grew serious. She knew about the cracks. Earth's intelligence services had been tracking the reptilian empire's expansion for months. Someone would have to stop them eventually. What are they offering in return for aid? Everything they have. Complete technology transfer, alliance agreements, whatever we want. And what do you recommend? Do-hyun did not hesitate. We help them, Admiral. It's the right thing to do. Bora was quiet for a long moment. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. Humans were still the new species, still proving themselves. Getting involved in a war this big was dangerous, but letting innocent people die was worse. How many ships would we need? She asked. Intelligence says the cracks have over 200 vessels at Serenus Prime. We'd need everything we can spare. That's the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. 12 ships, 15,000 personnel. Against 200 cracks warships, Do-hyun said quietly. I know the odds, Admiral. Bora smiled grimly. The odds never stopped us before. Begin jump preparations, Captain. The fleet will meet you at Rally Point 7 in 10 hours. Understood. Thank you, Admiral. The connection ended. Do-hyun turned to his crew, who had been listening to every word. They were young, most of them. This would be their first real battle. Some might not come home. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's communication system. We're going to war. Not for territory or resources or politics. We're going to save people who can't save themselves. It's what humans do. Across the galaxy, the Villani waited for help that would never come. They did not know that 12 small ships were racing through hyperspace toward them. They did not know that 15,000 humans had volunteered to die for strangers they had never met. Ambassador Theiss stood in her crystal tower and watched the crack ships gather like storm clouds overhead. Soon they would begin the final assault. Soon her people would join the billions who had already fallen to Crack's cruelty. She did not know that help was coming. She could not imagine that somewhere in the darkness, Earth's Deathworlders were preparing to show the galaxy what humanity meant by justice. Admiral Bora stood in the war room deep inside Earth Command. Holographic displays showed star maps, ship positions, and intelligence reports. The room buzzed with activity as staff officers prepared for the largest military operation in human history. Fleet status report, Bora ordered. Commander Minho stepped forward with a data pad. He was the youngest intelligence officer ever promoted to Fleet Command staff. His job was to know everything about Earth's enemies. 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is assembling at Rally Point 7, Minho reported. 12 ships total. The battlecruiser Indomitable will serve as flagship. Heavy cruisers Soul's Pride, Defiant, and Harmony provide main firepower. 8 destroyers for escort and patrol duties. Personnel, 15,000 total. 12,000 fleet crew, 3,000 Marines. Colonel Sungmi will command ground forces. Bora nodded. Colonel Sungmi was Earth's best Marine commander. She had fought pirates in the Outer Rim and peacekeepers on 3 different worlds. If anyone could handle the Crack's ground forces, it was her. What do we know about Crack's military doctrine? Bora asked. Minho activated a holographic display showing Crack's ship designs and battle formations. They fight like their ancestors, pack hunters. Overwhelming numbers, frontal assault, no retreat. Their ships are heavily armored but slow. They rely on massive firepower rather than tactics. Weaknesses? They've never faced coordinated fleet action. Most of their victories come from attacking peaceful worlds with no military experience. They use the same formation every time, a wall of heavy ships with light escorts on the flanks. Commander Tae-jin spoke up from the back of the room. He commanded the destroyer Soul's Pride and had studied every available recording of Crack's battles. They fight like bullies, Admiral. They've never met anyone who hits back. Bora walked to the central display showing the Serenus system. 200 red dots marked Crack's positions around the planet. 12 blue dots showed the human fleet's planned arrival point. Recommended strategy? Colonel Sungmi stepped forward. She was a small woman with scars on her hands and fire in her eyes. Hit hard, hit fast, hit where they don't expect. The Cracks think in straight lines. We don't. Explain. They'll expect us to form a battle line and trade shots like gentlemen. Instead, we use our speed and maneuverability. Hit their flanks, break their formation, then defeat them in pieces. Tae-jin nodded agreement. My destroyers can micro-jump behind their lines, launch torpedo spreads and jump out before they can respond. Classic Wolfpack tactics. Minho pulled up more intelligence data. The Cracks have never encountered human military technology. Our ships are smaller but faster. Our weapons have better range and accuracy. Most importantly, our crews are trained for independent action. What does that mean? asked a young staff officer. Crack's crews follow orders from the top down, Minho explained. If you cut off the head, the body stops moving. Human crews are taught to think for themselves. Every ship captain can adapt to changing situations. Bo-Ra studied the tactical display. The odds were terrible. 200 ships against 12. But humans had faced worse odds before and won. Time to target? 42 hours until we reach Serenus Prime, reported Navigation Officer Kyung-soo. The Villani estimate they have maybe 60 hours before the planet falls. Close enough. What's the galactic response to our intervention? Minho checked his intelligence feeds. Mixed reactions. The Ethereal Confederation is concerned about human aggression. The Magna Hegemony thinks we're insane but admires our courage. Most species are taking a wait-and-see approach, meaning they want to see if we win before they decide what they think of us. Exactly. Bo-Ra turned to the assembled officers. These were Earth's best and brightest. Young men and women who had volunteered to defend strangers on the other side of the galaxy. They knew the risks. They came anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make history. 50 years ago, Earth joined the galactic community as a minor power. Today we become something more. We become the people other species call when they need help. She activated the main display, showing Earth in all its blue and green beauty. Our world taught us hard lessons. We learned to fight for what matters. We learned that strength without purpose is meaningless. We learned that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when you're outnumbered. The room was silent except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of ships launching from Earth's orbital shipyards. The cracks think they understand warfare. They think bigger ships and more guns always win. They've never fought humans. They don't know that we spent thousands of years fighting each other before we learned to fight together. They don't know that we come from a death world where everything tries to kill you. Bo-Ra paused, looking each officer in the eye. Most importantly, they don't know that humans never give up. Not when innocent people need our help. Not when the odds are against us. Not ever. She walked to her command chair and sat down. Signaled the fleet. All ships jump to hyperspace in 30 minutes. We have a war to win. The officers scattered to their duties. Within an hour, 12 human warships disappeared into the swirling energy of hyperspace. Their destination was a planet they had never seen, to save people they had never met, from an enemy that outnumbered them 20-1. Across the galaxy, other species tracked the human fleet's progress with interest and concern. Some hoped the humans would succeed. Others hoped they would fail and leave galactic politics to more experienced powers. On Serenus Prime, Ambassador Thys received word that help was coming. The message was short and simple. Hold on. Earth is coming. She did not know what Earth was. She had never heard of humans. But for the first time in days, she felt something that had been missing from her world. Hope. The cracks intercepted the same message and laughed. What could 12 ships do against their mighty fleet? Admiral Vorth, commander of the cracks forces, did not even bother to change his battle plans. These humans would be destroyed like all the others who had tried to stop the cracks empire. He had no idea what was racing toward him through the darkness between stars. He had never heard of Pearl Harbor or D-Day or the Battle of Britain. He did not know that humans had been fighting impossible wars and winning them for thousands of years. He was about to learn. In hyperspace, Captain Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the swirling energies outside his ship. In 36 hours, they would drop back into normal space at the edge of the Serenus system. The cracks would be waiting. Nervous? Asked his executive officer, Commander Hee-jin. Do-hyun smiled. Excited. We're about to show the galaxy who we really are. And who are we? The people who answer when someone calls for help. The people who fight for others instead of ourselves. The people who never give up. He turned to face his crew. Young faces, determined faces. Faces that had volunteered to die for strangers. Earth's children, he said quietly, going to do what Earth's children do best. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Serenus system, like ghosts materializing from a nightmare. 12 ships appeared where there had been empty space moments before. They were small by galactic standards, sleek and predatory, built for speed rather than intimidation. Admiral Vorth was eating his morning meal when the proximity alarms began screaming. The massive cracks commander stood nearly 3 meters tall, with scales like black armor and teeth designed for tearing flesh. He had conquered 17 worlds and never lost a battle. "Report," he growled at his tactical officer. 12 unknown vessels at the system edge, Admiral. Small configuration, possibly scouts. Fourth activated the main display and saw the human ship spreading into attack formation. They moved with purpose and precision. Nothing like the panicked fleeing he usually saw from species who dared to challenge the Cracks Empire. "Have they responded to our hails?" "Yes, Admiral." "Incoming transmission." The main screen shifted to show Admiral Bora on the bridge of the Indomitable. She looked calm and professional, like someone discussing trade agreements rather than facing 200 warships. "This is Admiral Bora of the United Earth Fleet," she said in clear, steady words. "You are in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The bridge of Vorth's flagship erupted in laughter. His officers found the idea of 12 tiny ships threatening their massive armada hilarious. Vorth himself was more curious than amused. These humans either had a secret weapon or were completely insane. "Human," he said, leaning forward in his command chair. "I am Admiral Vorth of the Cracks Empire. Your 12 ships face 200 of mine. Surrender now and I will kill you quickly." Bora's expression did not change. "You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal. After that, we will consider you hostile and act accordingly." 30 seconds? Vorth's voice rose to a roar. "I will give you 30 seconds to watch your ships burn." The transmission ended. On the human flagship, Bora turned to her tactical officer. "All ships, execute Plan Alpha. Show them what humans do to bullies." The Cracks expected the humans to form a traditional battle line and exchange long-range fire. That was how civilized species fought wars: polite, predictable, safe. The humans had other ideas. Captain Do-hyun's Indomitable led the charge directly at the center of the Cracks formation. Instead of slowing down for a careful approach, the human ships accelerated to attack speed. Their engines blazed like blue stars as they raced toward the enemy fleet. "All ships break formation," Do-hyun ordered when they reached optimal range. "Engage at will." The human fleet scattered like a school of fish, each ship moving independently. This confused the Cracks, who were used to fighting opponents who stayed in neat, predictable lines. Captain Ji-won commanded the heavy cruiser Defiant. She was a veteran of the Outer Rim campaigns and knew how to handle her ship like a dancer handles music. As Cracks' heavy cruisers turned their massive guns toward her, she rolled her ship through a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible for their larger vessels. "Fire on my mark," she told her weapons officer. "Target their forward shields." The Defiant's railguns spoke with voices of thunder. Magnetic accelerators hurled metal slugs at incredible speeds. The projectiles punched through Cracks' armor like paper, sending chunks of hull spinning into space. But Ji-won was already moving. Before the enemy could return fire, her ship twisted away in a spiral pattern that confused their targeting computers. She struck again from a different angle, then vanished behind a cluster of asteroids. Commander Taejin took a different approach with his destroyer, Soul's Pride. His ship was fast enough to use micro-jumps, short hyperspace hops that allowed almost instant movement across the battlefield. "Jump." "Coordinates locked," reported his navigator. "Execute." Soul's Pride vanished from normal space and reappeared, behind 3 Cracks cruisers. Before they could react, Taejin launched a full spread of antimatter torpedoes. The missiles struck at close range, overloading the enemy shields and crippling their engines. "Jump us out," he ordered, as return fire began tracking toward his position. The destroyer disappeared again, leaving the Cracks firing at empty space. This was not how wars were supposed to work. The Cracks had rules: formation fighting, honor duels, predictable tactics. The humans ignored all of it. They fought like their ancestors had in Earth's ancient oceans, hunting in packs, striking from unexpected angles, using every advantage they could find. Admiral Vorth watched his carefully ordered battle plan fall apart in the first 5 minutes of combat. His ships were bigger and more heavily armed than the human vessels, but they could not hit targets that refused to stay still. "Concentrate fire on the flagship," he ordered. "Kill their leader and the rest will scatter." 20 Crack ships turned their weapons toward the Indomitable. Captain Do-hyun saw them coming and smiled grimly. "They want to dance," he told his crew. "Let's give them a dance they'll remember." The human flagship dove toward the planet, using its gravity well to build speed. Crack's weapons fire filled the space behind it, but Do-hyun's ship was already somewhere else. He pulled a tight loop around one of Serenus. Prime's moons, and came back at the Cracks formation from below. Fire. Everything, he ordered. The Indomitables. Weapons batteries opened fire at point-blank range. Particle beams, railgun rounds, and missile salvos struck the nearest Cracks cruiser simultaneously. The enemy ship's shields collapsed and its hull came apart like a broken toy. But the real surprise came from an unexpected direction. The destroyer Busan Lightning, commanded by Captain Hyun-woo, had been quiet during the initial exchange. While other ships engaged the main fleet, he had positioned himself near the edge of the battle. All missiles target their command ship, he ordered. Full spread, maximum yield. 40 antimatter warheads screamed across space toward Admiral Vorth's flagship. The Cracks point defense systems destroyed most of them, but 6 got through. They struck the massive ship's command section with devastating effect. Vorth felt his ship shudder around him. Emergency lights flashed as damage reports flooded in. His beautiful, terrible flagship, pride of the Cracks Empire, was hurt. Status report, he roared. Forward shields down to 30%. Fire index 7 through 12. Command systems operating on backup power. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vorth felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. These humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced. They were improvising, adapting, thinking. Every time he tried to counter their moves, they changed tactics. In 30 minutes of combat, the humans had destroyed 18 Cracks ships and damaged dozens more. The humans had taken damage too, but nothing critical. They were still fighting at full efficiency. New orders, Vorth announced to his fleet. All ships fighting withdrawal to defensive positions. We regroup and plan a proper assault. It was the first time in Cracks history that their fleet had retreated from a smaller force. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Do-hyun watched the enemy ships pull back. His tactical officer reported their status. All ships operational, Captain. Minor damage to Harmony and Soul's Pride, but nothing that affects combat capability. Casualties? 17 wounded, none dead. Do-hyun nodded. The first round had gone to humanity, but the war was far from over. The Cracks still had overwhelming numbers. They would adapt to human tactics eventually. Signal Admiral Bora, he ordered. Tell her we've made contact with the enemy. They're not as tough as they think they are. Across the system, Ambassador Theiss watched the battle from her crystal tower. The humans had actually hurt the mighty Cracks fleet. Ships that had seemed invincible were now leaking atmosphere and calling for rescue. For the first time since the invasion began, she dared to believe her people might survive. But Admiral Vorth was not finished. He had lost the first battle, but he commanded 200 ships. The humans had shown him their tactics. Now he would show them what happened when the Cracks Empire got serious about killing. Admiral Vorth's rage burned hotter than a ship's engine core. The humans had embarrassed him in space, destroyed his ships, made his mighty fleet look like amateurs. No species had ever done that to the Cracks Empire. No species would live to do it again. Deploy ground forces, he ordered his surviving captains. All troops to the planet's surface. If these humans want to protect the Villani, let them try to stop 500,000 Cracks warriors. The dropships began falling from orbit like deadly rain. Each ship carried 1,000 soldiers bred for war. Their scales were natural armor. Their claws could tear through metal. Their teeth could bite through bone. They lived for battle and cared nothing for mercy. Colonel Sung-mi watched the enemy deployment from the bridge of the transport ship Determination. She was a small woman with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much war. Behind her stood 3,000 human Marines, the best Earth had ever trained. Deployment pattern? Asked Major Dalsu, her second in command. Scattered insertion. Squads of 20 across all 3 continents. We can't match their numbers, so we fight smart instead. Rules of engagement? Sung-mi's expression hardened. Protect the civilians. Kill anything that threatens them. Show these lizards what humans do to bullies who hurt innocent people. The human dropships were smaller and faster than the Cracks vessels. They slipped through the orbital battle and landed in hidden positions across Serenus Prime. While the Cracks massed their forces for traditional ground assaults, human squads spread out like ghosts in the wilderness. Sergeant Dalsu led Squad 7 to the crystal forests of the northern continent. His team included heavy weapons specialist Yoon Seo, a quiet woman who spoke softly and carried a particle cannon that could punch holes through tank armor. Contacts, whispered Scout Junho from his position in the crystal trees. 200 Cracks moving toward the Villani settlement. Dalsu studied the terrain through his binoculars. The crystal forest created natural choke points where large forces had to bunch together, perfect for an ambush. Yun Xiao set up the heavy weapon on that ridge. Junho moved to overwatch position. Everyone else crossfire positions along the valley. The cracks came through the forest like a moving wall of scales and weapons. They expected to find terrified civilians hiding in crystal houses. Instead, they found death waiting in the shadows. Yun Xiao's particle cannon spoke first. The brilliant beam cut through the cracks formation like a sword through cloth. Alien soldiers screamed and fell as their armor melted under the intense energy. The rest of the squad opened fire from concealed positions. Human weapons were precise and deadly. Each shot found its target. Each target fell and did not get up. The cracks tried to return fire, but their enemies were invisible. Muzzle flashes appeared from a dozen different positions, then vanished as the humans moved to new spots. The aliens found themselves shooting at shadows while death struck from all directions. "Fall back. Regroup," shouted the cracks commander. But Dalsu's squad was already moving. They vanished into the crystal maze, leaving behind 200 dead cracks and empty forest. On the southern continent, Lieutenant Jae-hoon faced a different challenge. 3,000 cracks had surrounded a Vellani city, preparing for massacre. His squad of 20 humans could not fight them directly. They needed help from above. Target coordinates confirmed, reported communications specialist Min-ji. 3 cracks armor columns, approximately 1,000 vehicles. Jae-hoon activated his orbital targeting system. High above, the human fleet waited for his signal. Fire mission authenticated. All ships commence orbital bombardment. Light fell from the sky like the anger of gods. Particle beams and kinetic projectiles struck the cracks formations with surgical precision. Tanks exploded. Transport vehicles turned to melted metal. The neat enemy columns became chaos and confusion, but some cracks survived the orbital strike and began advancing toward the city again. That was when they met Medic So Young and learned that human medical personnel were not helpless support troops. So Young had trained as a doctor before joining the Marines. She could save lives with gentle hands and heal wounds with advanced medicine. She could also kill with frightening efficiency when innocent people were threatened. The crack squad that cornered her outside the city hospital made a fatal mistake. They thought the small human female would be easy prey. They discovered that human medical training included detailed knowledge of anatomy and the best ways to damage it. So Young's combat knife found vital points with surgical precision. Her sidearm never missed its target. In 30 seconds, 12 cracks warriors lay dead in the hospital courtyard. "Medical bay is secure," she reported calmly, then went back to treating wounded Vellani civilians. The pattern repeated across the planet. Human squads appeared where the cracks least expected them. They struck hard and fast, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Every attack was perfectly coordinated with orbital support or other squad movements. The cracks had trained for planetary conquest against helpless populations. They knew how to destroy cities and terrorize civilians. They had never fought an enemy that turned the entire planet into a weapon. Human Marines used every advantage their training provided. They turned crystal formations into fortified positions. They used underground tunnels to move unseen across vast distances. They called down precision strikes from orbit that eliminated enemy strongpoints without harming nearby civilians. Most importantly, they fought for something the cracks could not understand. Every human soldier knew they were protecting innocent people. That knowledge made them faster, smarter, more determined than any enemy they had ever faced. Squad 12, led by Sergeant Eun-ji, exemplified this dedication. They had been assigned to protect a Vellani school where 300 children had taken shelter. When 500 cracks surrounded the building, Eun-ji's 12 soldiers faced impossible odds. "We could withdraw," suggested Corporal Taemin. "Live to fight another day." Eun-ji looked through the window at Vellani youngsters huddled together in fear. Some were barely more than babies. All of them would die if the humans abandoned them. "We don't abandon children," she said simply. "Never." The battle for the school lasted 6 hours. 12 humans held off 500 cracks using superior tactics, better weapons, and absolute determination. They turned the school into a fortress, using furniture and equipment to create defensive positions. When the cracks charged, human weapons cut them down. When they tried to surround the building, human grenades drove them back. When they brought up heavy weapons, human snipers eliminated the crews. By the end of the battle, the schoolyard was littered with cracks' bodies. Squad 12 had taken casualties, 4 wounded, 1 dead, but the children were safe. Yunji knelt beside the body of Private Chan Wu, who had died protecting the school's main entrance. He was 19 years old and had joined the Marines to see the galaxy. Now he would never go home to Earth, but around him 300 Villani children slept safely in their makeshift shelter. They would live to grow up, to have families, to build the peaceful future their species dreamed of. That was why humans fought. Not for territory or wealth or glory, but for the right of innocent people to live without fear. Across Serenus Prime, the story was the same. Human Marines fought with skill and courage that amazed their allies and terrified their enemies. They saved civilians, destroyed Krax formations, and turned what should have been a massacre into a military disaster for the invaders. Admiral Vorth received casualty reports with growing disbelief. His ground forces were being defeated by an enemy that numbered barely 8,000. Worse, the humans were not just killing his soldiers, they were humiliating them. "How many humans are on the planet?" he demanded. "Intelligence estimates 3,000 Marines, Admiral." 3,000! Vorth's voice was quiet and deadly. 3,000 humans are destroying 500,000 of my best troops. They fight differently than anything we have encountered. They use the terrain, coordinate with orbital support, and seem to appear wherever we are weakest. Vorth studied the tactical displays showing human positions across the planet. The red dots representing his forces were shrinking, while the blue dots representing humans seemed to be everywhere at once. For the first time in his career, the mighty Krax admiral began to wonder if he could actually lose this war. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Do-hyun monitored the ground battle with pride and concern. His Marines were performing magnificently, but they were still vastly outnumbered. The Krax would eventually adapt to human tactics. "Colonel Sung-mi reports all primary objectives secured," his communications officer announced. "Villani civilian casualties are minimal. Enemy ground forces are in full retreat," Do-hyun smiled. Earth's children were doing what they did best, protecting those who could not protect themselves. But the war was far from over. Above the planet, Admiral Vorth was preparing his final gambit. If he could not defeat the humans with conventional weapons, he would try something that had never failed him before: terror. Admiral Vorth's final plan was simple and brutal. If he could not defeat the humans in battle, he would break their spirit with horror. The Krax Empire had used this tactic for centuries: show an enemy something so terrible that they would surrender rather than watch it happen again. "Prepare the planet crackers," Vorth ordered his weapons officers. "Target the largest Villani city. We will give these humans a choice: surrender or watch millions die." The planet crackers were weapons of mass destruction, designed to shatter continents and boil oceans. The Krax used them to terrorize enemies into submission. No species had ever been willing to watch innocent worlds burn just to continue fighting. But Admiral Vorth had never fought humans before. The message reached Admiral Bora just as her intelligence officer, Commander Yunji, intercepted Krax communications about massive reinforcements heading toward the Serenus system. "Admiral," Yunji reported with urgency, "our listening posts have detected the Krax Second Fleet moving toward our position. 60 ships, including their newest dreadnoughts. They'll arrive in 18 hours. Bora studied the tactical display. Her 12 ships had already proven they could outfight the Krax in single combat. But adding 60 more enemy vessels would tip the balance dangerously. What about those planet crackers Vorth is threatening to use? Confirmed. Massive orbital bombardment platforms designed to destroy entire continents. If he uses them on the civilian populations..." Bora's expression hardened. She had grown up on Earth during the resource wars, when desperate nations had threatened nuclear destruction rather than accept defeat. She knew the mind of someone willing to murder innocents for military advantage. "Not happening. Signal Captain Do-hyun. Tell him to prepare for Operation Thunderstrike." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Do-hyun received his orders with grim satisfaction. Operation Thunderstrike was the most dangerous assault pattern in the human military manual. It required perfect timing, absolute coordination, and complete willingness to risk everything for victory. "All ships, form up for final assault," Do-hyun announced to the fleet. "We end this now." The human ships moved with deadly purpose toward the Krax formation. But instead of the scattered wolfpack tactics they had used before, they formed a tight spearhead aimed directly at Vorth's flagship. "They're committing suicide," Vorth's tactical officer observed. Concentrated formation against our entire fleet. Vorth was not so certain. The humans had surprised him too many times already, but he had his own surprise waiting. Activate the planet crackers. Let them watch their precious civilians burn. The massive weapons began charging, drawing power from the flagship's main reactor. In minutes, they would unleash enough destructive force to kill 10 million Villani with a single shot. That was when they discovered that intelligence officer Yun-Ji had not just been listening to Crack's communications. She had been infiltrating them. Signal from Commander Yun-Ji, reported the communications officer aboard the Indomitable. She's uploaded a virus into the Crack's command network. Their planet crackers are offline. Do-hyun smiled grimly. Earth's cyber warfare specialists had learned their trade fighting the most sophisticated computer systems in human space. Crack's technology was powerful but crude compared to the elegant malware Yun-Ji had crafted. All ships, execute Thunderstrike. Show them what happens when they threaten innocent people. The human fleet struck like a hammer blow aimed at the heart of the enemy formation. Captain Ji-won's Defiant led the charge, her railguns blazing as she carved through the Crack's defensive line. Commander Tae-jin's Soul's Pride used micro-jumps to appear behind enemy vessels, launching torpedo spreads that crippled their engines. But the real devastation came from an unexpected source. The destroyer Busan Lightning, commanded by Captain Hyunwoo, had been modified with an experimental weapons system during the fleet's journey to Serenus Prime. Hyperspace torpedo ready for launch, reported his weapons officer. Target confirmed. Admiral Vorth's flagship. The hyperspace torpedo was a desperate weapon created by human scientists who had studied Crack's shield technology. It could jump through hyperspace for short distances, bypassing enemy defenses entirely. Fire. The torpedo vanished from normal space and reappeared inside Vorth's flagship, detonating in the main reactor chamber. The massive Crack's vessel shuddered and began breaking apart. Admiral Vorth felt his ship dying around him. Emergency power flickered. Artificial gravity failed. Atmosphere began venting through hull breaches. Damage report, he roared. Total reactor failure. Life support failing. We have maybe 10 minutes before complete structural collapse. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vorth faced defeat. Not just tactical setback or strategic withdrawal, but complete and utter failure. His mighty fleet was being destroyed by 12 human ships. His ground forces had been humiliated by 3,000 Marines. His terror weapons had been turned against him by human hackers. Sir, his communications officer called out. The humans are hailing us. Vorth's image appeared on the main screen of the Indomitable. The proud Crack's admiral looked broken and desperate, his flagship burning around him. This is Admiral Bo-Ra, the human commander said calmly. I'm prepared to accept your surrender. Surrender? Vorth's voice was filled with rage and disbelief. The Crack's empire does not surrender. Then you'll die here. Your choice. Do-hyun watched the exchange with professional interest. He had studied the Crack's psychology files during the journey to Serenus Prime. They were predators who respected only strength. Showing mercy too early would be seen as weakness. Admiral, Vorth said finally, your species fights like demons. We fight like humans, Bo-Ra replied. There's a difference. The difference was that demons fought for destruction. Humans fought for protection. Demons enjoyed causing pain. Humans regretted the necessity of violence. What terms? Vorth asked. Complete withdrawal from Villani space. Non-aggression pact with Earth and all our allies. Reparations for the damage you've caused. Vorth was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his flagship continued dying. Through the viewports, he could see the rest of his fleet in similar condition. The humans had beaten him completely, and if I refuse, then in 18 hours your reinforcements will arrive to find nothing but wreckage. They can try to avenge you, but they'll discover the same thing you did. Humans don't give up when innocent people need our help. The Crack's admiral looked at the tactical display showing the destruction of his forces. 200 ships reduced to scrap metal. 500,000 ground troops defeated by 3,000 Marines. His entire career, his entire reputation, destroyed by a species he had never heard of 6 months ago. I accept your terms, he said quietly. The surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. Within hours, every species in known space had heard the news. The mighty Crack's empire, conquerors of 17 worlds, had been defeated by Earth's tiny fleet. But the real shock was not the military victory. It was what the humans did next. Instead of claiming Volani space as conquered territory, Earth established a protection agreement. Instead of demanding tribute, humans offered aid and technology sharing. Instead of occupying defeated Crack's worlds, they helped negotiate a peace treaty that left the reptilian empire intact, but reformed. Ambassador Thys met with Admiral Bora in the crystal towers of Serenus Prime to sign the formal alliance between Earth and the Volani Republic. Why? Thys asked as they watched human ships helping repair the damage from the invasion. Your people could have claimed our worlds as prizes. Instead, you ask only for friendship. Bora smiled. Earth learned long ago that conquered enemies become future problems. Friends become future allies. And if other species ask for your help as we did, we'll answer. That's what civilized species do. Within 6 months, 12 other worlds had requested human protection. Earth found itself at the center of a growing alliance of species who shared humanity's belief that the strong should protect the weak. Captain Do Hyun, promoted to admiral after the victory, established the first human embassy in Volani space. The crystal spires of Serenus Prime rose again, this time with human engineering helping them grow stronger than before. Admiral, asked young Lieutenant Park during the embassy dedication ceremony, do you think we'll face threats like the Cracks again? Do-hyun looked up at the stars where human patrol ships worked alongside Volani vessels to guard the trade routes. Probably. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and will we be ready? We'll do what humans always do. We'll adapt, we'll learn, and we'll protect the people who can't protect themselves. The ceremony ended with both species' anthems played together, human and Volani voices joining in harmony. It was a sound that represented something new in galactic politics. Not conquest or domination, but cooperation and mutual defense. In the months that followed, reports reached Earth of ancient threats stirring in the dark spaces between stars. Entities that had slumbered for millennia were awakening, drawn by the energy signatures of modern starships. The galaxy's newest protectors would soon face challenges that would test everything they had learned about warfare and diplomacy. But that was a story for another day. Today, Serenus Prime was safe. The Volani children played in crystal gardens tended by both their own people